Welcome to the second part of our series in Bridging the Data Gap. How statisticians and really anyone dealing with data can communicate data science to Christian leaders. So let's remember where we left off last time. Last time we talked about the idea that everyone from Christian leadership for nonprofits or churches, all the way to people dealing with data for these organizations, want to be able to bridge the gap between their understanding of the problem that God has called them to measuring the impact that they can see to solve this problem. And we talked last time about the idea that data can be that connection. Now, last time we talked about the idea around preparation and understanding, really laying the foundation for both data scientists and Christian leaders alike to be able to understand each other and understand the problem at hand. But in this one, we're going to talk about data. All right, time for me to appear on the screen here. So let's talk a little bit more about data and how data can, again, play a role in connecting the understanding of a problem all the way to the impact that we're trying to be able to measure. So let's jump in. Remember, each one of these slides, I've picked a Bible verse to go with it. So let's talk about Matthew 25:15. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. And he went on his journey. God has given us many different talents. He does this by design. He does not do this by mistake. And if this is the case, then all of us have been created to build out the fullness of the body of Christ. It is okay that Christian leadership doesn't know everything, and they need to rely on the talents of people around them. However, same goes for the people working with the data at these organizations. It's okay for data scientists to not know everything. We as data scientists need to rely on the leaders to be able to guide us and to be able to help us. I've heard this analogy used a variety of different times by a lot of different pastors, so I'm going to assume it's a good one. And it deals with a story about a helicopter and floods. So there was a tale of a woman whose house had begun to flood. So she gets up on the roof of her house. A boat comes along and says, "Ma'am, we need to get in the boat. We need to go because your house is beginning to flood." The lady tells the individuals in the boat, "I'm so sorry, but God has got me on this. Don't worry, I'll be fine." Another time later, more individuals arrive in the boat and say, "Ma'am, I'm so sorry, you really need to get on this boat. The floodwaters are rising to a point that we can't send any more boats." Again, she refuses and says, "God has got me. I'll be just fine." Now the floodwaters have risen to the point where no boats can get in, so a helicopter flies in to try and save her. And again, they say, "Ma'am, you really need to get in this helicopter. We can't come back anymore to be able to save you from the rising floods." Again, she refuses and says, "Don't worry, my God has got me in this." Unfortunately, the floodwaters continue to rise. And then the story goes that we jump to the gates of heaven. And we talk to the lady again. God addresses the lady and says, "How are you doing?" She goes, "Well, I'm a little disappointed in all honesty. I figured you would help me in my time of need when the floodwaters were rising all around me." God turns to her and says, "I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. What more did you want me to send you?" You know, it's a funny analogy, but really it goes to a lot of what we deal with as data scientists in the world of Christian leadership. A lot of times people look upon us as outsiders, as the fact that data and science, they can't go along with Christianity and faith, when in reality that's not true. God has created us to be helpers. He's created us to be servants, and we want to be able to serve and be able to help however we can with the talents that we've been given. You see, data is not a burden, but a gift, a tool. Just like any tool, there are some with talents to be able to use that tool. A lot of times, we want to be able to use that tool for God. So let's jump into our next one. Let's talk about subject matter experts. And here we're going to go to Exodus 31, taking snippets of verses 1 through 7. I invite you, though, to go back and read verses 1 through 7 in their totality. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "See, I have called by name Bezalel." I know I probably didn't get that right. "And I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all kinds of craftsmanship, to create artistic designs." And then it continues to lay out more things that God has created this individual for. You see, subject matter experts, people who are good and knowledgeable about the problem at hand, whatever problem these Christian organizations or churches are trying to solve, they're the lifeblood of any data problem. They can make the difference really between success and failure. Subject matter experts, which a lot of times are the leadership at these organizations, tie analytics problems and solutions back to implementation, back to deployment, back to the impact that we're looking to be able to measure. Data scientists, we need access to correct subject matter experts to help with guidance on problems, as well as answer specific questions that we have. However, Christian leaders, they need a bridge to the data scientists to make sure that the problem has the correct focus, has the correct solution that's going to be provided for them in a way that they can use it. I can tell you another story of times that I've worked with subject matter experts at a Christian organization. Specifically, I'm going to tell you about a time when I worked with VFI, Vision Fund International. I'll be honest, I had built bank credit scoring models for people before, for major banks, people who are in the regulatory industry. But I've never done it for banks in developing countries. And so although I had some expertise, I needed to lean on the expertise of the individuals in these countries to help me understand their problem more. Talking with them revealed important knowledge around the culture and the individuals that were taking out these loans. This directly impacted not only the interpretation of the variables I tried putting in the model, but also what variables could even be included in a model. You see, a lot of times they were collecting information that I wasn't used to because I hadn't dealt with those specific types of loans in those countries. Or those countries and those specific types of loans were collecting data that was different than what I was used to. So I needed these subject matter experts. I needed the people close to the ground to be able to understand more of what was going on with the problem. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to do my job in providing the leadership with the answers they needed. Speaking of doing my job, a lot of times we have to worry about the idea of taking shortcuts. For this, let's go to Proverbs. Proverbs 19:2. "Enthusiasm without knowledge is no good. Haste makes mistakes." I know I have this problem a lot of times. People are always looking for the quick out. I know I do. Especially when it comes to the process of data science and analytics. However, the methods that we take as data scientists, as just data people in general, might seem cumbersome by some people, especially those who are not as familiar with data processes. But typically, there is a method to our madness. Assumptions drive inference. Inference drives insights. And insights drive the decisions that the leadership at these Christian organizations and churches need to be able to make better, more secure decisions. Data scientists must be given leeway. Must be given leeway to experiment, and in all honesty, to possibly fail when going down a path. Every one of us in our career have done things that have not worked out. Data science is very much that. A lot of times we go down paths thinking this is the way to get the right answer, and it's not. And so we don't always know that ahead of time, so we have to go back and start over. But this shouldn't delay, or it shouldn't hinder any kind of belief in the data science, any kind of belief in the data itself. A lot of times we just can't take shortcuts and we need a long process. And that can be disheartening for leadership at times who need to be patient and wait. Getting to that Now we have to battle a notion of tension between accuracy and interpretation. And for this, we'll go to Proverbs 18:2. Fools have no interest in understanding. They only want to air their own opinions. You know, both the people on the data side as well as the leadership at these organizations need to understand the balance between accuracy and interpretation. Sometimes beautiful, complicated models aren't always useful. Sorry, data scientists, it's true. Sometimes easy to understand models, they just don't predict as well as more complicated ones. There is a balance that must be struck between them. Data scientists, I'm going to pick on you here a little bit. We need to be careful sometimes about trying to do the new, awesome approach when a lot of times maybe the basic one would provide a ton of help. Again, let me give you a story. I remember a time when I was doing some survey analysis for a church that I attended. They had taken a survey and they needed someone to look through the data that they collected. You know, I'll be honest with you, I could have probably come up with some fancy models to try and predict things, but in reality, they just needed to visualize their data. I gave them a basic report with some bar charts, and they understood things at a level that they never thought they could. Again, sometimes maybe a dashboard is the easiest thing to make, when in reality, even though we want to always build something big and complicated, we need to think of the people on the other end. Again, as data scientists, we're servants. It's our job to serve those who are our leaders. And so we need to be able to give them things that are best suited for them. Which all brings us back to the same place we ended our last talk with. It's going to be the same place I end this talk with. And that goes to leadership. So for this, we're going to one of my personal favorite Bible verses. John 3:30. He must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. You know, data scientists, we need supportive leadership to be successful. We need empowerment. Unfortunately, we need meetings. We need to be able to experiment, and we need to be allowed to fail. Leaders, you don't need to do everything. You are amazing at what you do. You've been called for a purpose. Do it. But in all reality, we've been called for a purpose as well. This is where we can help. Again, this is where data scientists provide value. They see data in a different way. We're nerds. That's just what we are. However, we can't provide this help if we don't have what we've talked about really here today. We all need to understand, both data scientists and leadership, that we all have different talents. Christ made us to be a whole body. We are designed to be who we are. And together we make that full body, not any of us individually. Which means both data scientists and leaders need subject matter experts, people that are on the ground dealing with, a lot of times when we say data, we mean people. Dealing with the people that we're trying to be able to serve better through this organization, through the church, through his kingdom. We need to start small. We need to take no shortcuts. We need to balance between accuracy and interpretability. Once we do all those things, once we work with leadership, we'll be able to start connecting those pieces between understanding and impact. So let's wrap it all up. We've identified the puzzle piece in the middle. We've talked about the idea of data. Come back next time so we can talk about the last piece of bridging the gap. Let's talk about impact. But for now, thank you all very, very much, as always, for listening to me. God bless and take care.